This is the new 2016 Chevy half-ton truck. We're going to show you how to put the new front end replacement on that thing we've just now gotten finished with. First thing you do is pop the hood, and there's some little pegs right here that you're going to get a regular screwdriver, and you got to kind of pry them up to get them guys out of there. Just like that. I can't remember how many there is, but there's a series of them around this thing that you just got to take off to get this thing off. So in order to get the chrome bumper off, you have to take the grill out of this truck. So that's the first step to do that. Once you get that off of there, there's going to be 4 bolts. They're 10 millimeter. They're not very tight. You can take a screwdriver with a little end on it there for the 10 millimeter. And there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 of them to take off of there. When you get ready to take this grill out, don't get in a hurry. It does tend to scare a little bit trying to get this thing out, but I'm going to take a little screwdriver, another regular screwdriver, same one, and right here there's a little peg. It's a little guide that guides that grill into the truck. I'm going to take this screwdriver, in order for it to release, I'm going to put it up underneath there, because this grill's actually got to push back a little bit, and then you pull up and then back towards you to get it out. Again, I say just be careful with it, but you got to have that screwdriver underneath there in order to lift it up, because that little peg right there wants to hold it down, and it makes it hard just to lift up and pull back. So that little screwdriver right there helps release that little latch. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. You probably ought to have another person with you, that way one person can hold the other side, but I think I can get hers here. Once you got the top like that released, you can come down over here, and on the bottom, of course you're going to have a chrome. We've already started this before we realized that, no, we need to do a video on this thing. I'm going to grab it right there, and it's going to just pull out. Okay, like I say again, be easy with it. It ain't going to break on you as long as you're careful. Because you got a series of little clips right here that you can see that have to be pulled out. That's what we're pulling on. That goes into little spots in the truck right there. There's one, there's another. Okay, so you're just trying to pull them out. I'm going to come over here and get this expensive thing out of the way. Again, we've already started this process, so imagine the chrome bumper still on this truck. Right here, the reason you got to pull the chrome off is because right here there's a bolt hole. There's a bolt right there and a bolt over here, okay? And on this bumper over here, that was going to be your top one, and that was going to be your bottom one. You cannot get to them. You can probably get to this one without taking the bumper off, or the grill off, but you will not get to that one. So that's why we had to take the grill out of there. When we get to the brackets, this is one that's not on there. It's a little easier for you to see. We've got a couple little dishes right there, because there's some little braces right there that are in the way of the bracket going up on there. You can see this little cup back here. That little cup right there, this bracket, the frame's going to go inside this bracket, and this right here needs to go all the way back, and it gets wedged in that cup, in between the cup and the frame. So it needs to go all the way back, and then you can see like a little 1/2-inch bolt right here. And you got to have that 1/2-inch bolt in there with that 2-inch spacer, because what that bolt does, it goes in there and that little plate goes on top of your frame, and when you tighten that, it pinches that frame and it makes sure that your bracket can't pivot. And once that's tight right there with this back wedged in that cup, it's locked into place and your bracket can't pivot like that. So that's why that's done that way. You got 4 bolts, you got 2 on each side. You won't use all 4 bolts, but we put 4 on there. That way we can use one bracket. We just flip it when we bend it, and it works on both sides. It's a little less confusion for fabrication purposes. So you won't necessarily have 4 bolts on each side in the bracket. So that's how you put that bracket on there. And again, I don't know if I mentioned, the bracket actually angles to the outside of the truck. So you're going to have one for one side and one for the other. They just make sure they angle to the outside. When you take before you take the chrome off, You also got to make sure you unplug. If you've got fog lights and sensors, you're going to unplug this thing. You're going to pull that little red clip back, and there's a little black piece of plastic that's got to push down, and then the harness pulls apart like that. The other spot that you got to undo, these bolts right here, if I forgot to mention, were 18mm bolts. So you're going to need an 18mm. You got a side brace right here that you're going to have to undo, and you can take the brace all the way off. We didn't. You can actually go up underneath here, and there's 2 bolts right here that are 15mm. That's a 15mm. You can just take all 3 of them out if you want and just take the brace off completely if so desire. This end right here actually comes over here and bolts to this bracket right here. Okay, so you've got a 15mm bolt that goes to there. So it's really only 3 bolts that attached to that thing. It's 15mm and an 18 and 18 right there, and that's on both sides right there. And the chrome bumper will come off. It's very easy to take the chrome bumper off, but unfortunately you do have to take the grill out of the truck. So we are going to, oh, I did forget to mention, we got one more brace right here. This brace right here though, I would not put on until you have the front end mounted. So don't do this. We just put it on here right here because it's easier for you to see without the front end on it. But this brace right here would be a lot easier once you get the front end mounted. The way the front end will mount, there's a shoe on the front end that mounts to here. You can kind of see the resemblance. You got a little flat plate there, and then we're going to come up over here to our front end, and you can see the shoe right here that's got the same hole pattern. Okay, that's how you're going to mount this thing. It's 2 1/2 by 1 3/4 bolts on each side that is going to mount those shoes together. You can kind of see our harness here that we have. We've already taken it out and put in here. Again, we kind of forgot that we were doing this install and kind of already had things apart. And the chrome bumper, we can take that harness out. They've got a bunch of clips that it clips down in these little holes, but you're just going to have to take the whole harness out of here and put it in the, your new front end replacement bumper. The factory housings on here that we take out that the sensors sit into, we've already put them in there. I probably should have taken one out, but what you do, the factory housings, you take the little sensors out of them, guys. You just got to pull them little ears apart right there. It's easier if you grab a little regular screwdriver, which I may do that. I'm going to grab that regular screwdriver and put it in there. This is how you would take it out of the factory. I've got my finger on the front side just pushing. I do that, and that thing pulls out of there really easy. Even out of the factory bumper, you're just going to push that little housing out of there. You may have to squeeze the little sides right there, and it just pushes out the front. Well, you're going to take that housing and put back into your new front end replacement. Okay, the factory housings hold the sensor a lot better, and then that sensor is going to have a little rubber on there. You got to make sure. Sometimes they like to fall off of there, so just make sure it's on there, and you're going to put that back in that factory housing, and it clips down in there. Okay, we got a little hole in the side of our upright to make sure your wiring goes through there, and that way it won't make it too short for your outside sensors, and then your light, your plug for your light over there. Okay, but that's got your sensors on there. If you did have fog lights, we got one in the bumper already. It's going to be installed by some 1/4 by 1 bolts, as we got provided in the bolt kit for you. In your chrome bumper, there's going to be 4 little bolts that are 8mm, that are 9/32, excuse me, 9/32 bolts right there. There's four of them. You can take your same nut driver, which we use, and put that in there, and it's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You just take them out, and then your light is going to come straight out of that bumper. Okay, it's a very simple thing to do, and you're just going to take it over here and you're going to install it into your new front end, just like that. Again, you're just going to put your 4 1/4 by 1 bolts in there. We are going to go ahead and get some help, and we can mount this thing up on there. And then we can show you again. Like I say, this is the other end that has to go through that hole to allow you to have room. If you don't put it through that hole down there, it will not have enough room on this thing. So we're gonna get some help. Make sure you got plenty of help. It's not real heavy, but enough where you need a couple, 3 people. We're gonna have these line up with the brackets right there. This bracket right here we did put on there. This is the one that I said do after you mount these bottom brackets, because it's easier to get to. I just wanted to have that on there so you can see. That's how it bolts up. There's like a little tab. If we go to the other side, you see a little black tab. That's what it's mounting to on the front end. Anyhow, but that's that bracket that was already mounted on the frame that we said just wait until after you get the front end mounted before you do that. Okay, so again, we're going to get a couple guys. We're going to help hang it, and then we're going to show you how to align everything, and we'll be back shortly. Okay, we've got the front end on here now. There is one step I want to tell you to do that we actually forgot to tell you before we came back on here. Before you put the front end on, the last thing you do, and get all your brackets and that ready before you put the front end on, is put your grill back in. We did that just as we hung it and pulled the front end forward and put it back in, no big deal. But put the grill back in before you put your front end on. It's a lot easier. Put your series of bolts back in that you took out. You can put your top plastic on. We haven't put that on there yet. But just do everything that you put everything back that you took off, and then you'll be ready to hang your front end. We showed you where to mount your front end to and everything. I'm going to put my hood down, so I want to show you how to align this thing. Once you get the front end's bolts in there, we put a floor jack up underneath there to help hold it up, support it, because you want to get this thing level from side to side and right from side to side. One thing you want to do, you want about an inch. I myself like about 3/4 to an inch revealance underneath here, because when I go through the pasture, I will know how much it moves, or bad speed bumps or whatever. If you put it right up against there, you're just taking too much of a chance of it hitting. So we like about 3/4 to 1 inch gap up underneath there. Once if you got your jack up underneath there, you can kind of get that leveled out on there and make sure that reveal's the same. And then I'm going to get over here and I'm going to measure on the side of the truck. I'm going to bump the side of the truck and measure from there to my loop and make sure you're the same from side to side. You can actually check your fender too and make sure that you got the same amount of front end sticking out from your fender well. That way you know you got it right side to side. Up and down from left to right, I always make sure that I get my logo lined up with my rear view mirror, and I'm going to back straight up, and I get down and make sure that my bars are the same height from side to side. I go under, on this truck I go underneath the bar and make sure it's lined up with this truck's white, my white part just above the headlights, and make sure it's lined up and down, left to right, right there. And once that is, you can tighten your bolts, maybe snug the top ones first, and just in case something pulled out of whack, you can just unloosen one real quick and adjust it. But then go ahead, once you've got that right, tighten both of those 1/2 by 1 3/4 bolts on what we call the shoes to the bottom brackets that we had, and get those tight. And then that's when you go up underneath there and put that other bracket we told you about that goes to the tab up underneath there, back to that 15mm bolt on the truck. If you got the sensors and the lights in here, you'll have that harness we showed you how to put in. You need to go ahead and make sure you plug it back in up underneath there for your sensors and your lights, and you are good to go. And after you get done with that, I just hope you enjoy the brand new 2016 Chevy half-ton front end replacement from Frontier Truck Gear. Thank you.